any specific verse? Did you read my message? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين أنفسهم وأموالهم بأن لهم الجنة يقاتلون في سبيل الله فيقتلون ويقتلون وعدا عليه حقا في التوراة والإنجيل والقرآن ومن أوفى بعهده من الله فاستبشروا ببيعكم الذي بايعتم به وذلك هو الفوز العظيم. التائبون العابدون الحامدون السائحون الراكعون الساجدون الآمرون بالمعروف والناهون عن المنكر والحافظون لحدود الله وبشر المؤمنين. ما كان للنبي والذين آمنوا أن يستغفروا للمشركين ولو كانوا أولي قربى من بعد ما تبين لهم أنهم أصحاب الجحيم. وما كان استغفار إبراهيم لأبيه إلا عن موعدة وعدها إياه فلما تبين له أنه عدو لله تبرأ منه إن إبراهيم لأواه حليم. وما كان الله ليضل قوما بعد إذ هداهم حتى يبين لهم ما يتقون إن الله بكل شيء عليم. إن الله له ملك السماوات والأرض يحيي ويميت وما لكم من دون الله من ولي ولا نصير. صدق الله العظيم.
أليس هو القائد والحبيب؟ ألسنا نتمنى لو كنا في أيامه ولو مشى بقدميه على عيوننا؟ هو الذي قال المرء من أحب يوم القيامة. محمد فخر فخر وإثم بس إله جاد من شر سطر من شر سطر. لو أني أرى النظر سواد الشعر واللحية عظيما وجامده جامد جبل راس العدا كسر ما في الإنس من حوله أراهم أية الرغباء وحده من الهبة كأنه جيوش الجبار والعسكر من الموت يخاطبني في ليل القاف لي يتبسم واشوف النور
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله الحمد لله الحمد لله رب العالمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. صدق الله العظيم. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Firstly, thank you for turning up today. We're only temporarily here today because they've got the students have their winter time Christmas pre-Christmas mock exams. Inshallah, next week we'll be back to our usual fifth floor spot, and with back with Sheikh Muhammad and everyone else, inshallah. So we've kind of covered this topic, I think maybe a year or two ago, with Ustadh Harun, where he spoke about 13 common illusory methods that people adopt, thinking that it will reform them, it will change them. Does anyone, if anyone was there, does anyone remember any? You can just put your hands up. You remember? Sheikh Hamza, go ahead.
I think we covered them in a pre on this here. One
Okay.
of them is thinking that going to Umrah will change everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that is one. That is one that was mentioned. Any others? Sisters, if you don't know, then you can guess. What common things do people employ or people do thinking that it's gonna change them or become or help them become closer to Allah? Hijrah, yeah. What do you mean by hijrah?
People think the family and move to a Muslim country,
Hmm.
they're going to help them get close to Allah.
Okay, so today is about hijrah going to Dubai. That's the hijrah for today, isn't it? Whether that's for Islam or dunya, Allah knows best. Anything else? Sisters, anything? Could shout out. Anything common. We all do it. We all think that this is the way.
Learning Arabic.
Learning Arabic, yeah? Yeah. What do you mean? Why do people think that takes them closer to Allah?
By learning Arabic, they equate that to understanding the Quran. To understand the Quran, they believe that they'll get close to Allah.
Yeah, that's one. Well, that's a key fallacy. Yes, sister. Memorizing the Quran. Why do people think that takes them closer to Allah? Inner peace. Okay. Any others? This Khilafah. That's an excellent one. That's one I thought was imperative as well. So explain that a little bit.
We often think once we have Khilafah, then everything will be rosy.
Hmm. Yeah.
We'll complete our obligation.
Yeah. So these are all correct answers because they're correct because you said them, meaning that we think that they are ways that we get closer to Allah. So inshallah, may not be able to get through all 13. There are more, but these 13 are somewhat common, if you like. So the first, first we need to kind of frame why are we exploring these 13 things. This principle is in the Shahada itself. Before affirmation, what happens in the Shahada? What is someone translate the Shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. What does it mean?
No deity worthy.
Okay, so the first part, what are you doing? You're negating. You're negating what?
Nothing to worship.
Right. And then what are you then doing? What are you subsequently doing after that? Accept Allah. So you're affirming Allah. Similarly, the prophetic manhaj or the prophetic methodology is always, before you show what is the way, you have to negate all non-ways or non-paths. So hence, this is why we go through these things, because they're misconceptions that are self-created, and also they're delusions by shaitan as well. So what happens that we focus so much on these non-methods that we don't reach the destination in the end. So as a brother said, what's your name, brother, again? Ilyas. Niyaz. Brother Niyaz excellently summarized for us that the Shahada negates what isn't worthy of worship and affirms who is worthy of worship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And not only that, what's the last part of the Shahada? Muhammad Rasulullah, i.e. what is that showing now? He is the messenger of Allah. So he is the one that we follow to affirm our belief in Allah. Does that make sense? So that's the principle. It's always a principle in anything that the Prophet taught, is negate the opposites and affirm the right thing. Hence why do you think Allah always talks about the example of shaitan? Because he is the ultimate example of what not to be and what not to do. It's a sunnah of Allah and the Prophet to teach through opposites. Because through the opposites, we should kind of thank shaitan in a weird way, because his stupidity has allowed us to see what not to become and what not to be. And understanding that helps us on our journey to become what we're supposed to be, which is, we come here all the time, which is the khulafa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, with most people, we are sincere in the sense that there is a yearning. We might be sinful, we might be, delusional to an extent with many of the things that do, but ultimately there is a fire in us that tells us, yes, I should be becoming closer to Allah, I should be doing X, Y, and Z, I should pray more, I need to fix my relationship with Allah. Very few people actually think, yeah, they're perfect, their relationship is perfect with Allah. Because when a person who thinks that is actually probably more closer to the path of shaitan than their path to Allah, to think that you've reached perfection. So most people are in that boat. Most of us are in that boat where we think we have this yearning to to be close to Allah and the Prophet ﷺ. So what we do is that we employ uh, different methods, different avenues, which we think will take us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we already mentioned, so I think one of the brothers mentioned studying Arabic. Yeah. In other words, if we expand that a little bit, we can say attaining knowledge. In the furthest sense, becoming a scholar. So why do you think that people employ this method or think this method takes them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why do we think that? Why do we think people think that this is the way? I go to Sadiq Society courses. I go to, I don't know, I was about to say something, I was Tayyibun or Maghrib or, anywhere. I go to any of these courses. I go to Azhar, I go to Medina for 3 years. I become, a BA in Arabic studies or Islamic studies, and I'm gonna become close to Allah. Why do people think that's the solution?
Common ayah that people say that إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء.
So translate that for us, Ajams.
Might be incorrect, but do not best. So people who have khashiyah, who fear Allah, are the ones who are most knowledgeable, who are ulama.
Ulama. Okay.
People use that to say, "Oh, I need to get more knowledge."
I will get more knowledge, and as a result of that, I become more in the presence and khushu and fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, that's essentially right. So people think I learn more about Allah, I one become closer to Him, and two, I'm more in the presence of Him because I understand more, I know more. But in reality, for most of us, what happens? How many of us have attended courses for the last 10, 20 years? And how many of us, if we're really honest with ourselves, we might have accumulated volumes of information and we can, recite lines of poetry and do some fa'ala, yaf'alu conjugations. But has that changed our relationship with Allah? Let's be honest. No. Why hasn't it? Why do you think it hasn't?
I think most of it is because you focus on memorization. So you think memorizing and attaining that's what people do most of the Quran.
Yeah. So this one's similar to learning Quran, and yeah, you're right. Gee. So in essence, the essence of that knowledge hasn't entered the heart. Some of the foremost knowledgeable and experts in hadith in the world today are non-Muslims. Because they're non-Muslims, that should send alarm bells. They know the hadith, they know the Quran, the linguistic structure of the Quran, they know Islamic history, they know the biography of the Prophet ﷺ better than we do. But that has not resulted in basic belief. That should say something to us, because it's not knowledge in and of itself that transforms the person. Because anyone can acquire knowledge, right? And then people also commonly quote the narration that seeking knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim. Now, if you think about that hadith for a second, right? If that was telling us now we all need to go and become highly knowledgeable scholars of the deen, this is the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, right? Was that the case with Sahaba? So at the time of the Prophet ﷺ's departure from this physical world, roughly how many Sahaba were there? Guess, let's take a guess. Try out numbers. 100,000. 100,000, yeah? A bit higher. It was 120,000. And the scholars estimate that amongst those Sahaba, how many do you think we would regard as scholars? Amongst the 120,000. Take a guess. 1,000. So that's what? 1%? Just under 1%? Take another guess. That's what 0.1% now, isn't it? If it's 100, less than 0.1%. Less is less than 100. Take another guess. So those were scribes. A scribe and a scholar are two different things.
No, but the ones that were expressly said that they were allowed to
Teach.
was it Umar or was it Abu Bakr that they standardized the Quran?
I think that came after the Prophet ﷺ in terms of the structuring and the formation into. I think that was after the Prophet ﷺ, but I'm talking about within the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. How many within the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ were scholars?
50.
That's right. It was no more than 50. It was actually the actual number is around 40. So that, correct me if my maths is wrong, but I think that's 0.01% or less than that, or around that. But that goes to show, if the Prophet ﷺ is saying it is seeking knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim, and he was the prophet of this ummah, and amongst his Sahaba, 40 of them were scholars, and yet he's the Prophet ﷺ. So what standard is what's the standard here? Was it high levels of scholarship? No, because if he's a prophet, then he would have conveyed his message the best way. He said about the 120,000 of Sahaba that every single one of them are guiding stars. So it's not like, oh yeah, Prophet ﷺ was successful with a few of them, the other ones not so much. No, he said every single one of them are guiding stars. So what is meant, then we've got to understand we've got to think about what is meant by knowledge here. Is it to consume huge volumes of information and memorize it and just regurgitate? No, it's not that. Because he would have been successful in his mission, right? He was successful in achieving this statement. Every single knowledge is obligatory upon every single believer. So the question is now, what is knowledge? What knowledge is he referring to? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, referring to is obligatory knowledge. The knowledge that nobody can be excused from not pursuing and earning. And what is the obligatory knowledge? What knowledge do we need to have every day to function as a Muslim? Firstly, what? With the knowledge of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, right? And what pertains to that. So Aqidah. So knowing what belief in Allah is, what belief in the Prophet ﷺ is, and an extension to that, you have the 7 articles of faith. You have the angels, the books, Yawm al-Qiyamah, divine plan or fate, so on and so forth. And then the other side is, well, every day we have rituals, right? We have salah. We need to know how to clean ourselves. We need to know the fiqh of transactions to an extent. Obviously, there's technicalities, but basic what the Prophet is referring to when he talks about knowledge is the knowledge you need to function as a basic Muslim. And that's encapsulated in Hadith Jibril in essence. So in Hadith Jibril, Allah's Prophet defines what Iman is. He defines what Ihsan is. Sorry, Islam, as in the 5 pillars. So knowledge of the 5 pillars and what goes into that, right? And of that, there's some of that that's occurring every day. Some of that that's occurring sometimes, like zakah, you pay once a year. Once you paid zakah, maybe 5, 6, 7 times, then you kind of get what the rules are. But it's something that it's not something occurring every day. So there will be specialists. Hence why I'm not negating the need for specialists, because scholars are specialists, right? Because they existed, but that specialism isn't required for everyone. Then what is required of everyone is the fruit of Iman. That's what the Sahaba became, right? Does that make sense? So that's right. Well done, guys. It is the knowledge, and we can combine that with Quran recitation. In the sense of Quran recitation, memorizing the Quran is because in some ways we have deified the Quran, right? We have deified the Quran. What do I mean by we have deified the Quran? Does anyone take a guess? What do I mean by that?
Like I can just figure it out myself. So I'm just gonna watch a couple of YouTube videos and then I'll be able to read it myself.
Yeah.
Understand
Okay.
it myself.
Yeah. In a sense, yeah, that's right. So what I mean by we deified the Quran is that we assume that if I pick up the Quran myself, yeah, like Sheikh Hamza said, I've got direct access to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. So one is through memorization of Quran, because let's be honest, one of the reasons why it's particularly in the subcontinent, there's an obsession with creating Quran kids and grandchildren to be forced into. My dad tried to make me become a Hafiz. That didn't go well. One summer, then he gave up. But one of the ideas is that the desires for that is because there's a, there's a narration about, the Quran Hafiz and parents taken to Jannah, so on and so forth, something along those lines. It's like the high rank, but it's equated to being impressed with how much we can recall. Yeah, so it's more about being impressed with that rather than it being the reality and the implications of the Quran being present in the person. So many of us, we have friends or we grew up around people who went to madrasa and alimiya, and they become huffaz, but in some ways in the next year they've forgotten everything, but they're also doing madness at the side. The reason for that is because the reality of the Quran has settled in the person. So recitation and memorization, and also recitation is because people do get a spiritual high. When you listen to good Quran recitation, there's a spiritual high. But these are all temporary things. They're not the end. They're means to the end. They help you to get to the end. And of course, some people need to memorize the Quran because for preservation, it needs for preservation. So we'll combine three in one here. So we explored the idea of becoming a scholar or attaining lots of knowledge. We've linked that with the Quran, the memorization of the Quran and the recitation of the Quran, and also the approach of do it yourself. And I'll just go back to the point about deify the Quran, is that there is a perception amongst Muslims that we have the book, therefore we have access to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that, who have we bypassed? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, there's two famous narrations of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where separately he mentions, if you hold on to two things, you'll be protected, you'll be safe. One of those narrations was the Quran and, complete the sentence, the Quran and Sunnah. That's right. The other narration was the Quran and Ahl al-Bayt. But in both, has the Prophet said, if you have the Quran, you'll be safe? Just the Quran? No. What has he always combined it with? A means, a teacher with that Quran. So the first teacher of the Quran is the Prophet ﷺ, right? His Sunnah. Who are preserving his Sunnah? Who are the inheritors of his Sunnah? The ulama, and amongst the highest of them are the Ahl al-Bayt, because his family. The Prophet ﷺ raised the rank of his family amongst all his companions, amongst all those who inherit from him. Obviously, the ulama are the inheritors of the prophets, but his family are the ones who preserve, and historically this is the case, who have preserved the prophetic methodology of transformation. I.e., yes, there are scholars of fiqh, there are scholars of aqidah who preserve sciences, but the spirit of all of that has been preserved undoubtedly by the Prophet's family, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We see that in Imam Ali, we see that in Hassan and Hussein, Imam Hassan and Hussein, and their descendants, so forth, Zayn al-Abidin, even the mashayikh of all the turuq, they're all go back to the Ahl al-Bayt. So this is undeniable. So the Prophet ﷺ always combined it with a carrier, a teacher. The first teaching was with himself, but just accessing the Sunnah is dangerous. Why? Because you can still misinterpret. And this goes back to another fallacy of change, is doing it yourself. Because the Prophet ﷺ answers that question for us. You can't do it yourself. You need the Sahaba, and after the Sahaba, you need a chain that goes back all the way back to the Prophet ﷺ. So the inheritors of the Prophet ﷺ. Without that, what are the risks? What risks? What could we fall into? Misinterpretation. What else?
If you think it's correct just because you read this hadith, but then it's not, or you
Right.
don't understand how
Yeah.
it works.
And then you misapply it. So many a time when Muslims have done heinous things is because they've bypassed Prophet ﷺ first and foremost, and they've bypassed a protected chain of scholarship. By protected chain, what I mean is that the understanding is preserved generation after generation, and understanding isn't, very rarely it just comes about directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very rarely. And even with those people, they have a chain. Some people have ummi relationship. That's besides the point. But for the vast majority, understanding is preserved generation after generation. It's not just information. It's not you just, a scholar doesn't give you a book and he leaves it there. He teaches you the book. He teaches you all of that, and then that's how Islam in and of itself has been preserved for 1400 years. It's not people haven't been DIY. And the people who try to do DIY, it always has resulted in chaos, killing, so on and so forth. And even with regards to the memorization with the Quran itself, what is one of the descriptions of the Khawarij that the Prophet ﷺ makes with regards to the Quran? Does anyone know? Right, that's right. So the Quran, the recitation of the Quran will only go up to their throats, meaning it doesn't go to their heart. It hasn't penetrated their hearts. So it's a great warning for us. A lot of us fall into deception, and also it creates arrogance as well. So who is the greatest example of this? Who had lots of knowledge, but it didn't result in them doing what they needed to do. Shaitan. And how is that demonstrated? Right. So Shaitan, is said of him that imagine this. He used to teach angels. He used to teach angels. It's also said of him that there's no place on the earth that he did not prostrate. He did not worship Allah on. But where he fell, when we think about it, is obviously his arrogance. He didn't want to. He objected to Allah's commands, right? He didn't submit to what Allah commanded from him. And why did he not? People often recite us because Shaitan said Adam's made of clay and I'm made of fire. That's not really why. In a sense, yeah, I can understand that, but it's not really why. The real reason why is because Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam was just created. If you've just been, when a baby is born, does it have knowledge? Has it accumulated reward? Has it accumulated prayers and fasts and hajjs and umrahs, anything? It's nothing. It's starting from zero. Now he was comparing himself to Adam alayhi salam. Adam, in his eyes, was zero, and he was everything. So why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Adam to be his representative, i.e. Khalifa on the earth? In other words, Shaitan, through his own intellect, through his own estimation and his own understanding of whatever Allah has revealed to him, without a teacher, him thinking that he's number one, was to falsely come to the conclusion that knowledge, prayer, all these kind of things result in closeness with Allah. Because he wanted exclusive access to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Think about that. The kufr of Shaitan, the disbelief of Shaitan, wasn't that he disbelieved in Allah. He wasn't an atheist. A lot of people think that kufr is atheism. right? He wasn't an atheist, but he was disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deliberately in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was his kufr. And ultimately what that manifested is in him becoming so arrogant and so abhorrently disobedient that he could not tolerate another Allah's decree in choosing someone else over himself. When that person outwardly is nothing, starting from zero. It's like you starting a job tomorrow, yeah? You've been, I'm an accountant, for example, right? I've gone through uni, I've done 3 years of ACA, I've done 10 years of work experience, yeah? I'm currently, I don't know, finance director of somewhere, yeah? And I hear there's going to be the CFO's, there's going to be a CFO is going to change hands, right? There's going to be a new CFO. And I'm expecting, yeah, I've been in this place for 10 years. I know everything back to front. You know, I know the business. But what happens? The CEO chooses Omar. Omar hasn't done his GCSEs yet. So I'm using my intellect to rationalize why Omar. Why Omar? Why Omar? Because that's a fair question. Why Omar? Yeah. But the difference is that who is the one making the decision? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we really worship, if Shaitan really worshipped Allah for Allah and truly loved Allah for Allah, then he would what? He would accept Allah's decision. So these are some of the reasons why doing it yourself, accumulating vast amounts of information, reading lots of Quran, we can see these examples again with those who have gone astray. It doesn't result in transformation. In many ways, it can result in degeneration. Does that make sense? So the Prophet's methodology with regards to these things was that he wanted to establish the fruit of those things, of salah, of Quran, of knowledge, because as I've mentioned before, many of the Sahaba weren't scholars; they weren't highly educated. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, he wasn't a rich man. He was a laborer. But he said of him that he's the door to the Prophet's knowledge. Yeah. So, in essence, these things can be distractions. And we've already seen what the Prophet methodology is, because Sheikh Salman has gone through over 2 sessions. Prophet methodology, in a nutshell, is to transform an individual from their current state, which may be a state of sin, to where they are in the presence of Allah. Does that happen overnight? Doesn't happen overnight. So another fallacy that we all try to employ is trying to change everything at once. We're in a spiritual high. We think, okay, I've come to Sacred Compass today. I had a good boost. I'm going to go back. I'm going to stop everything that I do haram. That might work for day 1, day 2. But then what happens? Day 4 comes along. You had a fight with your wife or your mom or something. And then, I don't know, out of stress, you started smoking weed again. I don't know, it's a mad example. Yeah? So imagine you had a problem with that, or alcoholism, and you suddenly going to drink alcohol. Something happens, it's triggered you back to square one again. What the risk of that is that you go back even harder. So Shaitan tricks you, you've gone back even harder, and the Shaitan tricks you to thinking, oh look, I tried my hardest last time and I failed. So what happens? You become hopeless. I can never change. Whereas prophetic methodology is that change occurred in sequence, in stages. He didn't, for example, alcohol wasn't banned straight away. The first day Prophet ﷺ came down, I'm the Prophet of Allah, alcohol banned. No. First, what was established was Prophet ﷺ gave dawah to his Sahaba who drank. There's narrations that at one point they used to come to the salah and they leave the bottle just outside the masjid. They go and pray and they come back, pick up the bottle again. That's the reality of the people of the blessed companions. That's what the Prophet was dealing with. So the first stage was he gave dawah to them about the harms of alcohol. There wasn't an outright ban. And then the second, what happened? Alcohol was banned during times of prayer. At one point, Sahabas used to come to Salah drunk, yeah, but they used to come to Salah. And finally, alcohol was banned. But this came a lot later in the 23 years of prophethood. Meaning, the Prophet ﷺ has a methodology of change. He didn't change everything overnight. Why? Because we're human beings. Out of 100, one person can successfully change. For the vast majority of us, who are normal people, what will happen is we'll go cold turkey and then we come back even more furious than we were on it before. And that we get into a cycle of hopelessness, and shaitan gets us into this rut where we think, I can never do it, I'm not good enough, and we become hopeless. And ultimately, who have we become hopeless in? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are some of the tricks, is thinking that we can change something overnight. And who was the one in all of this during the training process that identified for the Sahaba at what point, okay, right now you do it this way. Now take this part away. Now take this part away. Who was the one who was designing that program for them? The Prophet ﷺ. That goes back again to the do-it-yourself. Hence why we need mentors. We need a holding hand along the way. Because when we do it ourselves, we can't see what somebody else can see. A lot of us, yeah, the wisdom, we all have the wisdom. We can give advice to our brother or our sister, advice that we don't implement ourselves. Because when you're away from that situation, your rationality works. But every single person is irrational in their own lives. Everybody knows what's right. You know, you would tell, it's rational to tell someone, okay, you've got a, porn addiction or alcohol addiction, you know. It's rational to say, okay, just prolong the lapses. But for ourselves, sometimes we don't see that rational because we think we can do it. Hence why it's very important to have a trainer, someone who holds your hand along the way, can see, identify, okay, all right, do this way now, do this that way now, adapt it this way. Because that was the role of the Prophet ﷺ. He trained the Sahaba like that, and his Sahaba trained their students like that as well. There's always a gradual process of change. And after all, the Prophet ﷺ said, the best deeds to Allah is that which is consistent, even if they are small. This is not just good deeds in terms of giving charity and something like that. It's also deeds not to commit a sin when you want to you get rewarded for that, right? So it includes those things as well. And for those who are familiar with what our Ustadhs teach here, that happens through a prolonged period of repetition, of resistance and repetition. So taking something that's in your subconscious and taking it out requires repetition and resistance for it to be installed in your subconscious being. And this again links back to the point of changing the most difficult thing first. When we try and tackle the most difficult thing first, we go cold turkey on that, we give up. We're very quick to give up when we fall, and then we achieve nothing. Whereas if your most difficult thing was X, but A, B, C, D are not so tough for you, but at least you're working on that, towards that, then you've at least achieved A, B, C, D, all the way up to Z is your hardest thing. Rather than if you focus on Z, fail at Z, but then everything else hasn't been changed. And this is when we think about it, it's rational. You know, if does it if you look at a child, when it starts nursery, are you going to give it calculus and you know, derivatives and integration and all that kind of stuff? Day one, no. It's a process. It's a stage by stage. He has to start with understanding this is one block, this is two blocks, and then go in concept of numbers, then decimals, then you know, BODMAS, was it BOMDAS, yeah, all that kind of stuff, and then algebra. It goes. It's the same tertib. It's the same methodology and seekers with the Prophet ﷺ and the Prophet Manhaj is you start small. You start small, and then you end up with something magnificent. Because the Sahaba, we don't. Sometimes we underestimate, you know, the period of Jahiliyyah. These were people that were burying daughters alive, you know, abusing women. Women had no status. Everybody was a womanizer. More or less, everyone was a womanizer. Imagine that. Alcoholism was rife. Adultery, fornication, use of prostitution was rife. But they ended up being what is described by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the best of generations. No other ummah or generation can match them out of the, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of millions years that we've been here. And it all came through this methodology. It didn't come overnight. Aisha radiallahu anha said, if you know, if alcohol and fornication was you know, forbidden straight away, then you know, there will be no Muslim. I'm interpreting the narration, but that's to the effect of that. I think this was also given an example. Performing the pilgrimage, i.e. Hajj, Umrah. Not just Hajj and Umrah, but they are, you can say they're the pinnacle, but just going to anywhere that's Islamic. So a lot of people, we go on these holidays, I don't know, to Granada, Spain, or I wouldn't class going to Dubai as Islamic holiday. Although it's supposedly a Muslim country, well, is a Muslim, it's run by Muslims, I'm not committing takfir on it. You know, going to Al-Aqsa, places like that. It's not just Hajj and Umrah. Why do we go there? Because whoever's gone to Hajj for the first time, we all felt that spiritual high at some point, right? When you first see the Kaaba, I haven't done Hajj, but I've done loads of Umrahs, ironically. When you first see the Kaaba, is because there is a spiritual high there. There is benefit to all these things, 100%. That's one thing that we shouldn't be so binary in our thinking. A lot of people say when we sit to them, oh, but does that mean you don't read the Quran? Are you that dim-witted? No, we're not saying that. He said you read the Quran in the context of transformation. It can't be devoid of the aim. Right? You read Quran, you acquire knowledge. These are all good things. You go to Hajj and Umrah. But if they're not resulting in something, then you're doing it and you're missing an element to it. Right? How many Umrahs and how many Hajjs did the Prophet perform? Just one. And when did it happen? Towards the tail end of the Seerah, right? How many Umrahs did the Prophet perform? I think there's a difference of opinion, but it's a handful. One or two. Yeah. And if he is the best of examples, then we know the objective of those Umrahs and that Hajj was achieved in just one trip. Right? And really there should be like graduations. In essence, like you're going back to affirm something that already exists. لبيك اللهم لبيك لا شريك لك لك الحمد لك لا شريك لك, is you're already affirming to Allah what already exists in you. You're not going there to get something new from Allah. You're going back to affirm to Allah, you know, I've come back, and you know, and hence why Prophet is emphasized at Hajj. What's taken away? Women can't even cover their faces, right? You can't cover their faces. You are in close proximity. Your eyes, you know, you can look at genders can be looking at each other all the time, right? And if you're not purified and go there and you're brushing in, how many women have been sexually abused in Hajj and Umrah? It's horrific to know, right? By sexual abuse, I'm talking about physically, inappropriately touched in Hajj and Umrah. Which goes to show what? That these people were going there thinking that they get purified, But what happens is that they become so consumed in their own sickness that in the place that's supposed to be pure, we're committing the most heinous of in the presence of Allah. Imagine that you're in the presence of Allah, and we're committing, you know, such abominable acts, which goes to show that the purification should have happened before we went to the Hajj. The Hajj is supposed to be like a graduation, a celebration, not the start. It's not the start. In many ways, it's the end, and it's just a renewal of that commitment, of that covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So we said we'll do 13, but we're actually out of time. I think we'll leave it there. But we've got the essence, right? It doesn't. Some of us these things may not apply, but the prophetic methodology, all of these things aren't means to an end. Aren't the end. They're means to an end. That they have to be coupled with a program of trying to transform who we are. Yeah, and that transformation ultimately results in presence with Allah alone and in public, in salah, outside of salah, such that we are always conscious that Allah is with me, watching me, hearing me. We repeat this so many times, but it's such a powerful thing. With me, watching me, hearing me. That's the minimum. Yeah, the maximum is when that reality is in every single moment in our lives. Every time we meet, we interact with someone, it's as if we're interacting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even when we're alone, it's as if we're with Allah. That's the purpose. Hajj, Umrah, Quran, all of those feed into that purpose. They don't become the purpose. That's the key point. Does anyone have any questions before we go into the dhikr? Yes, go ahead.
Because you mentioned about Hajj being sort of a graduation, does that mean one should delay going to Hajj until they reach a certain level of transformation? Or they should still hasten to get there, but go with better intentions?
That's probably a better question to ask Sheikh Muhammad, but no, I'm not saying delay it. What I'm saying is that at least go to Hajj knowing that Hajj is not going to change me. Because you don't just go to Hajj tomorrow. In this country, you're preparing, right? Even in the old times, how long did it go to? People were out. I heard some brother from Somalia 100 years ago. It took him 5 years to get to the Hajj. I don't know how it took him 5 years. Yeah, it took him 5 years to get to Makkah from Djibouti. Yeah, and it took him 5 years to get back. That's 5 years, meaning that for us, it might not be 5 years, it might be a couple of months, but there's preparation for it. You're not just turning up in front of the Kaaba, oh Allah, change me now, I've seen your house. Right? So even if it's obligatory upon you, because it becomes obligatory, correct me if I'm wrong, Sheikh Hamza, it becomes obligatory when a Muslim is of age and capable and financially capable to go and can have all their rights of the others fulfilled, right? But that realization doesn't happen overnight, does it? There's still time. So meaning that you don't just turn up to Allah's house and start thinking things will change. Yeah. And also, purification doesn't mean you've achieved purification. Has anyone ever achieved purification? If the Prophet ﷺ is the pinnacle of perfection of any creation, can we reach the Prophet ﷺ? No. So it's always a journey. There's always increase. There's never a stop to it. Does that make sense? But yeah, something you maybe could ask Sheikh Salman, Sir Harun, and Imam Sahib as well if you want a technical answer. Anyone else? Sisters? No? Yes, sir.
Just thinking, when you talk about the presence of Allah, it feels like a type of meditation, presence, mindfulness. And me personally, whenever I hear those terms, I think of Eastern cultures like Buddhism and Hinduism. That's what you think of when you think of mindfulness and presence. Why do you think they've got a monopoly on this concept?
Okay, mashallah. They don't have a monopoly. That's the thing. We have the monopoly. It's just that we haven't realized that we've forgotten it. So if you wanna learn practically what this means, then you should come and speak to us. But ihsan, which is how did the Prophet ﷺ define ihsan in Hadith Jibril? Some of us must have heard this 100 times. Sheikh Hamza, how did the Prophet ﷺ define ihsan?
Worship Allah as if you see Him.
Mhm.
You can't then as if He sees you.
Prophet ﷺ, in that definition of itself, is what? Imagination and presence. Right? The minimum level, basically that hadith, or sorry, that definition is given us to two standards of to the minimum and the maximum level of ihsan. To worship Allah as though you see Him, so you're in complete presence of Allah. And if you don't, which we can't see Him, know that He sees you, which means that you know that Allah is being aware that Allah is always there. The highest level is when you're in complete witnessing. Yeah, so like some of the Sahaba who mentioned, is if I see Jannah, I see Jahannam in the Salah, in the prayer. Prophet also mentioned one of the, I think it was a Hanzala or Sayyidina Haritha, who went to Sayyidina Abu Bakr one day and said, Ya Abu Bakr, I'm a hypocrite. He goes, why? Sayyidina Abu Bakr said, why? Oh, because when I'm with the Prophet ﷺ, it's as if I'm in, I'm in full fear and presence of Allah. But when I'm away from the Prophet ﷺ and attending to the worldly matters, I'm not in that presence anymore. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr got worried because he said, yeah, that's me as well. We need to go to the Prophet ﷺ and ask what's going on. We are hypocrites. Prophet ﷺ said, if you're always in that presence, then the angels will be shaking your hands in the street. Meaning that the highest presence is when, the highest level is when you're completely, how do I describe? You're completely in the witnessing, the mushahada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything that you do is as if you're dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Lowest level is you're aware that Allah is seeing me, watching me, hearing me. Yeah? Does that make sense? So is visualization, imagination, presence, meditation, that is prophetic. It's just that we've lost it. Why? Because we've made knowledge, we've made secular things. Knowledge in and of itself is some ways is a secular thing, right? We made these things, we've made outward ritual worship, outward symbols of worship and the objective. But it's the inner part that was missing. And inshallah, this is something that our teachers teach us to revive in ourselves. Because this is what the Prophet was teaching, is to bring us back to that constant awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because that, once we achieve that, or a level of that, it should perfect character. And if it hasn't, then we haven't achieved that ihsan. If we say we've got, I practice ihsan, but then it doesn't result in a beautiful relationship with the creation, then that's not really ihsan. But to your question, yes, it is very important, and we do have a monopoly of it. It's just that it's not realized at the moment for the vast majority of us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. I was just going to ask, so how would you know if the knowledge you have is something that you actually understand, or if it's just something you vaguely are aware of? For example, like we're told, like hadith, or we're told past the Quran. How do you know you understand it? Is it based on what a teacher says, or is it based on a feeling?
The safest way to know is when somebody of knowledge confirms your understanding. That's the safest way. And how do you know if they are worthy of? Is because you got to check their background, right? Who have they studied with? What credentials do they have? Do they have ijazas? Do they have a chain going back to the Prophet? How do I know their understanding is right? That's the safest way. Because again, it goes back to the Prophet said, my sunnah and the Ahlul Bayt. That somebody has to confirm it, right? So that's the safest way. Is that right? Okay. All right. I think we'll move on to next part, inshallah. So the dhikr, ironically, is another form of fallacy of thinking that it will change us. Like Quran, listening to Quran and reciting Quran, we get a spiritual high. We, it might sound nice. We get the vibes. We get the lights. We get, ambient lights are down, and we feel really close to Allah. But then after dhikr, we back to square one again, because dhikr in and of itself is a means, is 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 fuel for transformation. It is not transformation, so it's not the end, right? How it's fueled is that when we're in the state of dhikr, if our hearts and minds are not engaged in the remembrance of Allah, then it becomes what? It just becomes lip service, right? It just becomes your physical movements and producing sounds. So the key, again, everything is having the presence of Allah, is the dhikr. During the dhikr, we should be connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these are boosts. Salah, dhikr, tahajjud, reading Quran, any sort of act of worship, they're supposed to be boosts or moments where you're training presence. So when you come out of dhikr, that state of presence that we experienced in the dhikr or the salah, hopefully that remains for a while outside. And as more we do it with that training in mind, it becomes more and more dominant in our lives. So inshallah, during this dhikr, we mentioned that we will recite different adhkar, different salawat, and so on and so forth. Ultimately, it's to be in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So throughout the dhikr, we refresh that Allah is with me. Allah is with me in this present moment. You can bring to mind these sort of mindsets I'm going to mention now. Allah is with me in this present moment. Allah has always been with me. Allah has been with me from the beginning. He will be with me in the future. He understands me when nobody understands me. When everyone misunderstands me, He's the one who understands me. He's the one who created me. He knows what's inside my heart. He knows all the issues that I'm going through. He knows and He understands my pain. He understands how I feel, even more than I know myself. Allah is seeing me. Allah is seeing me in this present moment. Allah is seeing my state. Allah is Allah is hearing me. When my tongue is silent, when I can't express myself to people, when I struggle to do that, Allah hears me. Allah hears what's in my heart. It's Allah who can take me out of any predicament that I'm in, any problems that I'm facing, any issues that I have, any addictions that I have, any situations that I'm in, financial, health, mental, anything, any issues, whatever it is, Allah hears me. Allah sees and He knows that state. And only Allah can change that. And also use the faculty of imagination as well. As we mentioned briefly, Hadith Jibreel. We can't see Allah. We don't know how Allah looks like. But we know what His name looks like. So imagine Allah's name. From His blessed name, light is emanating and penetrating our hearts. And this, again, it's just a way of connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to stay in that presence and to keep focused. If we do find our minds wandering, bring the three keys back to mind. You can also make other visualizations if it helps, of Makkah, Medina, the Kaaba, any symbols or anything that reminds you of Allah, you can bring those to mind. And during this process, speak with your heart to Allah. Let your heart out. Everybody has an issue. Nobody has no issues. Everybody has one or two things that dominate their minds and their stresses. So bring those things to mind, and as if Allah is the one you're talking to, you're relaying, you're complaining to, and Allah is the one who inshallah will alleviate any issues that we're facing. So again, Allah is with me, Allah is watching me, Allah is hearing me, and use imagination. It's a very powerful tool to stay focused, inshallah. Well, the lights will be turned off. inshallah. This is just for concentration so we don't get distracted by environment. Turn that one as well off. It's too very bright. We've got the passage one on, so it's fine. Turn that, yeah. All right. If it helps, you can close your eyes. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون
محمد سيد الكونين والثقلين والفريقين من غرب ومن عجم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم هو الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته لكل هول من الأحوال مقتحم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله 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 ليس المولى إلا هو أنت الهادي أنت الحق ليس الهادي إلا هو محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أستغفر الله أستغفر الله أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد ذو الجلال والإكرام 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 اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صدق الله العظيم. يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك ولعظيم سلطانك. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. Ya Allah, Ya Arhamar Rahimeen, Ya Dhal Jalali wal Ikram. Allah, accept this gathering today from us. Allah, allow us to internalize the nasiha and internalize the lessons and teachings, Ya Arhamar Rahimeen. Allah, we are your sinful, forgetful servants, Ya Allah. We say one thing and do one thing. Allah, forgive us, Ya Arhamar Rahimeen. Allah, keep us upon the path of guidance and do not take us away from your mercy and your guidance, Ya Arhamar Rahimeen. Allah, bless the families of the brothers and sisters here today and those who are watching online and those who intend to come but were not able to come, Ya Rahman Rahim. Allah, bless us all, Ya Rabbil Alameen, and forgive us and allow us to become exemplary members of the ummah of your beloved Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Ya Arhamar Rahim. Allah, allow us to internalize the Sunnah, practice the Sunnah, reach your pleasure, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah, and reach the pleasure of your beloved Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in this life, Ya Arhamar Rahim. Allah, forgive us for all our shortcomings. Allah, give us the tawfiq to overcome our vices and habits and evil qualities which take us away from you, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah, and help us replace them with those which you will be pleased with, Ya Arhamar Rahimeen, Ya Akram al Akrameen. Allah, those who are suffering in silence, Allah, alleviate their suffering, Allah. Those whom we cause suffering to, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah, forgive us and then forgive them and compensate them. You are the best of compensators, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Ya Akram al Akrameen, forgive us for all those whom we have misguided, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. All those whom from our actions we have shown the ugliness of our character which have turned them away from you, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Forgive us, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Turn them back to you, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Turn us back to you, Ya Arhamar Rahimeen. Allah, brothers and sisters around the world, in Sudan, in Palestine, in Yemen, in Syria, in places that we seldom remember, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. You know where they are, you know who they are, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Allah, give them respite, Ya Arhamar Rahimeen, Allah. Those who have passed away, Allah, accept them as martyrs, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah, shuhada, and raise them amongst those who are successful, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Allah, forgive us for our inaction, forgive us for our inability to help in any meaningful way, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Give us the tawfiq to do something which will be pleasing to you and will help them in, Ya Arhamar Rahim. Allah, make us functional and beneficial members of this society, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Use us in your mission, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. And when we forget you, Allah, remind ourselves of you, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Call us back to the straight path, Ya Rabbil Alameen. For we will forget, we will sin, we will turn back to heedlessness, Ya Arhamar Allah. We beseech you, when this happens, to take us back, Ya Arhamar Rahim. اللهم يا ربي بجاه سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اجمع بيننا وبين سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله في الدنيا قبل الآخرة فصل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين. We have Sheikh Muhammad will be delivering the third module of the Salic syllabus on the 22nd and 23rd of November of this month, which will be on the topic of Usul al-Fiqh, so how Islamic Sharia is formulated, the sources of Sharia, the Quran and Sunnah, Ijma, scholarly consensus, why there are different madhabs, why there's differences, and how that isn't really a reason for disunity. So if anybody has any interest in this subject, it'll be quite it will be at a beginner's level, so it's for everyone to learn. And also, if you know these topics, it'll be a good chance to refresh and also take perspectives from Sheikh Muhammad using the angle of transformation as well. So that will be on the 22nd, 23rd at Morpeth, over 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, before courses both days, inshallah. Is there anything else? Yeah, so next week we'll be back to the same place, 5th floor, inshallah. We've got to pack up early today because we've got to move the stuff back upstairs. So the next 20 minutes or so, if anybody wants to see me, or I don't think we have a sister here present, you know, you can have a chat with me or with Adnan, Tasin or Rafat as well. So inshallah, and I think there's some snacks, so please help yourself. But around 20 past, we're going to have to start packing up to make sure we leave by 9:30, inshallah, because we have to take the chairs back upstairs. So thank you again for coming. See you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.